So today is branding CSS and HTML, and then next week we'll be talking about other display configuration elements, including things like configuring the way that your items and holdings display in Primo V. So that will be next week. And I did get comments from folks at the end of the session that some of these sessions are going too quickly. And I know last week, again, we covered just a lot of content. So I do have what I think is less content this time, so that we should have time to answer questions during the session and also after the session. So I'll be looking forward to the rest of the sessions to try and make sure that the content is more like 50 minutes, so we have that buffer time to answer questions. So today we'll be talking about customization. We'll be talking about ways to customize our Primo V branding and look and feel. And we're going to look at a few different ways, and we're going to be going from the least complicated to the more complicated. It doesn't have to be more complicated, but it just depends what your end goal is, what method you might use. So we'll start with looking at Primo Studio, and we'll see how we can use this tool to implement and also test customizations in Primo V, and you can visually see them before you put them in place, which is really useful, of course, to make sure that everything looks and feels the way you expect. We'll also look at the customization package manager, which is a way to put customizations in place, make them live, and also a way to access and change those customization files directly. And then finally, I'll introduce you to the Primo Explore dev environment. I'm not a programmer, and also I'm not able to install the Primo dev environment on my machine because I'm not allowed to be an administrator on my computer for security reasons, because I'm able to access customer environments. So I won't be able to show that as a demo, but I will show you a bunch of resources that you can use if you're interested in going that way, how you can set that up and what you might use it for. So we'll start with Primo Studio. Primo Studio is an interface that allows you to implement and test a set of customizations. I think it's easier to think of it as a sandbox because it's truly it's an entity unto itself. Anything you do in Primo Studio, unless you take specific action, does not affect anything in your live environment. So truly anything you do in Primo Studio stays in Primo Studio unless you take steps to make that live. So anything that you're doing in there, you can be sure that it's not affecting anything that your customer sees or anything that your patrons are seeing at any given point. But you can customize the color palette, so you can change the main and secondary colors and link colors and all that kind of thing. You can change images and icons, so you can change the logo. You can also change the icons like we've seen in the upfront record actions and other icons in Primo V. You're also able to change the resource type icons. A really cool thing is you're able to apply add-ons that other folks in the Primo community have developed and created, and it's a really easy way to apply them, and I'll show you how you can do that. You can also change and test the CSS. You can also change and test the HTML directly with an editor that's built into Primo Studio. And you're able to download the customization package after customizing it, and then the upload process is actually what puts it into place into whatever view it is that you're editing. There are two ways basically to get into Primo Studio. Likely you wouldn't be using this way, but there is the ability to use the initial setup URL. If you already have your Alma environment configured, your Primo V view configured, this likely isn't the way you're going to access Primo Studio. The way that I would recommend accessing Primo Studio is from Alma itself inside of the Discovery, the View Configuration menu in the Manage Customization Package tab. And I'll demo that in a few seconds. But in the Manage Customization Package tab, you have the link that links out to Primo Studio. And when you're opening Primo Studio, it's going to open in a new tab. It's a different look kind of and feel than the Alma config that you're looking at right now. And whether or not you're getting to Primo Studio from here, from this link, or from the initial URL, you are always opening the template. So you're always opening like the vanilla, no customization. You're seeing the Ex Libris logo, you're seeing the Ex Libris basic colors as if you had created a new view from scratch. So it always shows you that to begin with. Likely, if you've already made some customizations, like you have your colors in your environment, you have your institution's logo in your environment, you're not going to want to start from the custom view or the template view rather. You're going to want to start with what you currently have. So in order to start with what you currently have, you have to take a few additional steps. So you need to download your current view customization package. And if you haven't made any changes, like you're just starting with a completely new view, you're doing some testing or you're creating it for a library or a campus or something like that, and nothing has been done yet, you won't see this link here, this current view customization package, because you haven't done any customization yet. But once you start doing any sort of customization, and if you have, anything custom in your view that you're working with now, you should have this button where you can download your current view. And it will download a zip file of all of your files inside of your package. It will pull down all of your colors, your logos, anything that you've done so far, and it will download it, and then you can upload that into Primo Studio, and then you can keep working on the package that's live. So let's take a look at that. So I'm just going to go into my instance. So I'm going to start in Alma config, going into discovery here, under display configuration, again into configure views. And this is the view that we've been working with all along, so I'm going to edit it. And then the final tab, the last tab here, manage customization package, is the one that we'll be working with. So when I click into here, I have my go to Primo Studio link here, and then I see I have my template view customization package. So if I wanted to download and work with either in Primo Studio or outside Primo Studio, the template view, which is like the basic no customization, you could use that to download those files. And then this is what we've done so far. So let me just show you. So this is, of course, my Primo V instance, and not a lot has been done in this view, but I do have colors in here. So this is what I have live. And when I click on this, go to Primo Studio, we'll see it opens a new tab and it automatically loads the template. So it loads the basic Ex Libris logo and also the colors here. So I don't want to work with this template. I want to work with what I've already done. I want to continue working on this package. So what I would do is I would download my current view, and depending on your browser, that will determine where and what it looks like when it downloads. And I'm just gonna take it out of my downloads folder and put it in the desktop so I can show you it. Okay. Oops. Okay, my desktop is a lot cleaner than other folders I have, so there it is. And it puts the institution name here, that's psna1_inst, and then a dash, and then Laura is the name of the view. So that's how you should see it named when it downloads. So basically you don't need to do anything with it. You keep it zipped up in this instance. And if I want to start working with that in Primo V, I go into the last tab, which is upload package. And the text says upload package zip file to continue working from an existing package. And that's exactly what we want to do. So then I just browse to my desktop is where I've saved it, and I just choose my zip file, and then I upload it. And then it will upload what you've done so far. So you should be able to see, so now I see my colors have been added in here. And again, if you had any logo, anything like that, it would load into this page, and then you would be able to see that. The other thing to note as you're going through, if you are making edits in Studio, is that this is a live page. You can search, you can log in, you can go through your different, search interfaces. They should all load like a regular page, and that's so that you can see how all of the different pieces work as you start configuring. So you are able to do live searches and all that kind of thing in here so that you can see how all the components work with any changes you've made. So we see, obviously, we see like a split screen. We see our screen on the right, and then we see all of our editing options on the left. And the first tab is theme, and theme is just basically where you can change colors. So we have our primary, which obviously is up here. If I wanted to change it, I could click on the color itself, and then I could change my color. You also have your RGB values down here if you wanted to enter in something there. I actually don't know what that means, but, and then we also have your hex code. So often sites will have, a specific hex code that represents their institution's color. So you can then, you can type it in here, or you can go into the color and then type it in. Secondary color, background color. I've tried doing different things with background color and it always looks terrible. So I won't make any changes there. But you can kind of see, links, warning, positive, negative, and you can kind of, you can do some searches to find out, the links color obviously is represented here. And let me just see if I can find the doc. Right, so in the Primo Studio for Primo V page, you have your the theme tab options. You have primary, secondary, and you can kind of scroll through. It gives you screenshots of what you're actually changing when you change those colors, so that can be useful if you aren't quite sure, because they're not always named like super, like what does warning mean. You can look that up in the doc before you make that change, and then proceed or don't with changing the color. And you'll notice that I changed the color here. I chose a different color, but it's not updated here. Anything that you do, you have to click on Update Theme, and then it will reload your screen on the right, and then it will show you whatever you've changed. And again, this has nothing to do with your live view. This is just in Primo Studio, so it's not showing anything that you've done to your users. So your second tab here is Images. And here you can change your library logo. You can also change your library logo here in the actual Manage View page. So you can upload the logo here, and then you can add the clickable URL. So what URL does it go to when you click on the logo? The nice thing about changing it here is that you can see it, because here you just need to upload the file, upload it, and then save it. And then that would automatically change it in your production environment. So the benefit is that you can see it in test basically before you need to show it to the world. And I will put a logo in here. And there is information in the doc, but you should name it with like some name, underscore, logo, and it should be a PNG file or a portable network graphic file. So you can select that there, and there are size limitations in the documentation also that will show you like the pixel, how many pixels you can have. So it can't be like beyond that. PrimoV won't allow you to choose that as a logo file, so it will tell you if it doesn't meet the size requirements there. You can also choose the favicon. The favicon is the little like rainbow that you see up here on almost all of my tabs. It's coming from, that's the Ex Libris one. It's like a rainbow arch. If you wanted to change that to be more representative of your institution, you can choose your favicon here. The one thing to note about the favicon is that because you're seeing the live, this in particular is a sandbox. It's not affecting the live environment. If you did choose the favicon, it wouldn't change this page because this is attached to the way your live view is structured. So you wouldn't see it change even if you uploaded your images, but you would see it if you put it into place into the live view. You have also your library Icons Svg. So if you wanted to replace with the icons, like for example, this pin, or this, or the upfront record actions, like the email icon or something like that, you could replace all of those with your own icons, and you have to have a specifically formatted file that's in this SVG format. And okay, my WebEx bar is hiding my, oh, go away. It's hiding my tabs up here. Let me give it 1 second to go away. I'll show you in the doc what the file structure is supposed to look like. Go away. Here, I'm just going to make this smaller for 1 second. Let me just see. So I think it's in here. No, 1 second. Let me look at this one. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So this is in the Primo Studio for Primo V doc, and we'll link all of these docs so that you can take a look at them. But here is more information about, for example, the way that the logo file needs to be named in the Favicon icon. And then it has information about the SVG file. So it needs to be, it's kind of like this XML format. And then you have your ID that identifies which identifier or which icon rather you're changing. So this is the pin, and I'll show you in 1 second the icons tab. So you can grab all of the names of or the IDs rather of the pins that you might, or the icons that you might want to change. And then you can, all of your icon that you want to change can be in the same SVG file. So it just needs to be formatted like this. So you're only uploading one file, and then whichever icons you're looking to change would be included in there. Before I leave here, also, the last thing that you can upload is the resource icons. And they need to be named in this specific way, like icon_book, and they need to be PNGs. And let me just show you. So this one reverted back to the basic one. Oh, it doesn't want to search for me. Let's see. Well, let's see if Primo Studio will search for me. Okay, so if you wanted to change the resource type icons, that would be like this. So if there wasn't an image of the actual title of the article, and there are different images for book and journal that come out of the box. If you wanted to change that, you could choose your resource type icons, name them appropriately, and then upload them here. That's of course if there's not an image, a thumbnail coming from Syndetics. So if you've made any changes to your logo or your images rather, so I've added a logo here. When you're done, you can click on upload images, and there is a top limit in terms of like size. So if you're changing all of these at once, you might not be able to. You just might have to do it in batches, because I think that there's a limit in terms of how many and what kind of size of images you can upload at any given time, but you can always just go back to that tab and do it one more time in the same session. You should be okay. But we see that I've changed the logo. It doesn't look great. It looks like there's some padding around it maybe. It doesn't sit quite flush with the search bar. So when we get into the editor and we start looking at the CSS files, we can see how we can maybe adjust that so it looks better. And then if you want to revert, you can do that too. If you put something in there and it doesn't work, you can just remove it from the view. So this is the icons tab. So we were talking about the SVG file that can customize the icons. So if you did end up loading the SVG file in the images tab, you would see all of these icons changed to whatever your your custom file had said, and you would see the icon here that represents the image that you uploaded. And then if you clicked on update icons here, then you would see, once you refreshed, it would actually change in your right pane view. The other thing you can do if you're not interested in necessarily uploading a custom file of different images, you can always change the icon based on what's out of the box. So for example, if your institution would rather use like this pencil instead of the like push pin, you can choose that, and you could update icons, and then anywhere it's pulling in the pin, it instead would pull in this pencil. So you can do that with any of the icons that are listed in here, which also includes things like, your email icon and your link icon. So you have the option to either create your own set or change what's here, if that makes more sense for you. So the next tab is the add-ons. So this one I think is really cool. These are things that were developed. So it says up here, it's developed and maintained by the Primo community. So these are things that were developed by customers, or maybe somebody who has a integration that works with Alma. So this one is by BU Libraries. That's my alma mater, so thank you, BU. And you can just kind of read through what they are. And then if you click on this link, for example, like for this one, if you click on View in GitHub, that's where people are storing the actual, like the code base and information about their integration. So usually the developer will give you some screenshots and they'll tell you why they developed it. And so here's the background, the purpose. Maybe this is useful for you, how it works. And so again, these are created by customers. So this is not coming from Ex Libris. So they will need to explain like how the integration works, what kind of variables or parameters you might need to install it. So you'll need to read through what they've stated here to decide whether or not to integrate it. And then of course, just like words of caution, if you do pull in something like this, you'll just want to keep up with any changes with Primo V, any changes that the developer has added to this page, making sure that it works with further versions and things like that. So anything that you add that's not coming from Ex Libris has the possibility of breaking at some point. So you'll just want to keep up with it, I'll say. But if you do end up wanting to add something here and you've examined it and you understand what it does and what you need to add it, it's as simple as clicking add here. And then I'm going to add this one in particular. Let me actually show you. I need to make my screen a little smaller to get out of it. I am just going to show you what it looks like. This is from NYU Libraries. And what this is supposed to do is it gives you these little links that appear underneath the search bar. And so you can link out to your library hours or maybe a feedback box or something like that. So that's what this integration does. And so I'm going to add it. And again, the screen that's popped up here is based on what's needed for this particular integration. So it's going to be different based on what you choose, of course. And what you need to enter here is going to come from what is contained in that GitHub page. So I'm just typing what I know works from trying this before. And I'm adding the clock, and I think this is showing which clock icon I want to use. And again, I'm getting all of this from what the developer has mentioned. And I think that should work. And then I can submit it. And then you'll see that it's loading here, and then it will reload the page. And then I do get this little, the link here. So let me make my page bigger again. And so you can, work with that and you can see how they work. And if you then wanted to back out of anything that you've added, you can click on remove and it will just do the same thing as the add. It will just take it out, reload your page. And when it reloads again, then it's gone. So it's as easy as that. And I just think it's really cool that you get the benefit of what others have created and mostly vetted, because other folks have used this also. So yeah, that's how you can add add-ons. It's kind of similar to the Cloud Apps thing that's new for Alma in a way. So also, you have the ability to edit the files, the CSS files. You can edit the HTML files, image files, JavaScript files. So in Primo Studio, like this, you're editing your current studio editor CSS. That's what the editor brings up initially. So it's bringing up this studio editor CSS window here. So what you're basically doing if you want to edit the CSS is you are putting something in here into this window, and you see that the file that you want to upload to put changes into place is the custom1 CSS file. In Studio, it's read only, so you can't edit this file directly. But what this window does is anything you put in here will wrap your changes up into the custom1 CSS. So it adds it to that file for you. So basically you're editing it sort of like remotely. And you can make the editor window bigger because I know it's kind of small. I sympathize. It's not super easy to use. So you can make it a little bit bigger, but that of course compresses your view on the right. But if you did want to change some CSS, you could use this. There are a lot of, there's a whole doc of best practices. I might have it open. Yeah, so this is the Primo V customization best practices doc, and it does list a lot of the CSS that folks have used. That's very common changes that folks often want to make, and you can pull the CSS from, here we go, from the this page if you want to make any of the changes that are listed in this page, and then you would just basically copy it out of this doc, add it into your current Studio Editor CSS, and then you would click on Apply Changes, and then it would roll it up into that custom one CSS file, and that change would be made for this view that you're working on. So that's kind of how it works. Also, what you can do, I'm actually going to make this a little smaller for 1 second, is so we added this logo and it kind of has this like padding around it that makes it so it's not sitting completely flush with this bottom, the search bar area. So if we wanted to make some changes to the CSS to try and fix that, you can use the inspect element or the inspect option in Primo Studio. So I'm using Chrome. So the way that inspect works, of course, is going to be different based on your browser, but you can use inspect in here. And for example, I do happen to know from working with this before that when I hover over this product logo, the CSS, the styles area, I see that there is padding here. And when I hover over this area here where my mouse is, on the top left, you see that it's highlighting the padding there. So that does appear to be the reason why the image is sitting that way. So you can use the inspect area to make some changes. So if you wanted to change it to be 0 padding, now the image fits a lot better. It looks a lot better. The change I made here is only in Chrome, so it's only in the inspect area. If I wanted to put it into place in the custom CSS, I would just pull the change I made. So I just copied it, and then I'm gonna X out of this window, come back to my custom CSS editor, and then I would just paste it here. And then if I wanted to put that into place, I would click on Apply Changes, and then this has been pulled into the custom one CSS file. And then if I downloaded this and put it into place, then this padding would be changed. And this is the way that the image should appear if I decided to make this live. So that's the way you can edit your CSS files in Studio. You can also edit the HTML files from here. We'll look at email in a second, but you can edit the homepage. So we're on the homepage here. So the way that the tiles appear and the text in here and the links in here are controlled by the HTML there. So you can click on the homepage folder. And when you click on the homepage _en HTML, that's the file that's actually controlling this. And you can see if you scroll through, it contains all of the text and the list elements here. And I think a popular thing to show is that in the default, there is a typo. So if you wanted to change that typo, if you haven't made changes there already, you can just edit the HTML directly. So I've changed this list element to have the right spelling. If I hit Apply Changes, it'll again reload my page, and then now that typo is resolved. So you can work with the tiles here and the way that the homepage works with the HTML here. So that's about the extent of like my CSS and HTML knowledge. So I'm sure you know more than me and can make this look a lot better. You can also you can make changes to the email template. So this is the email that gets sent out when you're like emailing a citation to yourself, emails that are coming from Primo V. And this is just a nice visual way to edit it. So basically it's kind of like, it's not quite the same as the rest of Studio because you're not working with the view, you're working with the template for the email. But again, here is all of the HTML that creates this letter. So if you wanted to make any changes, you could do that. And then you could apply them and then approve the template. And then if you were ready to use it, if you'd made some changes, it was looking good, you can download it. And we'll talk about putting the actual view package into place in just a second. But if you did make changes to the email template, there is a separate area that it's the very bottom upload templates, upload email templates. So if you did make changes, here is where you'd browse for the package that you downloaded, and then you would end up uploading it and then saving it. So you are able to do that in Studio. And then the very last tab is download. So we've made some changes to the color, to the logo, to the HTML, to the CSS, and now we're ready to go. These are the changes we want to make, and so we download the package. And let me again, I'm just gonna bring it over to my desktop to show you, and you'll see that it's not named super usefully. For whatever reason, when you download the package from the view, it names it with the institution code, and then it appends the view. When you download it from Primo Studio, it just says package. That's not super useful, and I would recommend renaming it, especially for like version control. So if you did make some changes, I would recommend sort of naming it the same or something useful so that you can potentially go back to it if need be. Okay, I'm spelling things wrong here. Let me just name it the same. And then I just might give it like today's date or something like that, and then save it that way. And then I might change the name of this. So this is the package we initially downloaded. So that's what's currently in production. So if I'd made any changes, I might rename this one to be like, you know, underscore old or something, whatever, I don't know, whatever makes sense to you. Just in case you need to, back out of any changes that you've made, that's a really quick way. You can just then upload the old package, and then you'll be back to whatever you were before you had made their changes in Studio. So you see that these are all zipped up, and so they're ready to go. You don't need to do anything with them if you want to put this view into place. And if you are ready to do that, you would go into your Manage Views tab, and you would go to Upload Package, and then you would browse for your package here. Let me go to my desktop, and I would choose, you know, this is the new one. I would choose it, and then I would click Upload, and you should get a success thing up here if your file format is correct. And then if you are ready to save it, you would go here, and then it would tell you that everything deployed. So that's the thing. The save is actually pushing it out to your production view. And let me just see. It's really annoying that it's covering my tabs here. Let's see if it actually changes. This doesn't actually look like my view. Let's see. Sometimes there's a caching issue here. Yes, this is a different view. Let me just see. I put my Laura in here. What happens? And sometimes I see that my logo might have changed, but the colors don't change, or vice versa, and that tends to be like just a caching issue. And if you clear the cache, it should then. I don't know what's going on with this. Let me just go back to my view. See what it looks like. There we go. So everything did actually come through. So my color has changed, and my logo has changed, and my typo has been corrected. So now this is my view that's in place here, rather than the one we saw at the very beginning. So that's Primo Studio. So you can see that there's a lot that you can do with it, but there are some limitations to it because, you know, you're basically working with what you can do inside of that interface. So let's also look at the customization package manager. So the customization package manager is basically what we were just looking at. It's the way to upload and download the view files and then apply that whatever changes you've made and deploy it. But basically, we're talking about a different way to manage the CSS, HTML, JavaScript, and image files. Potentially a way to create a central package if you're part of a central office for a consortia. And again, you know, there's the option to deal with the template configurations there also. So what I mean by customization package manager is basically just the manage customization package tab. So we saw when we downloaded this current view customization package that it downloaded that zip file. Then we could use that zip file in Primo Studio. If you wanted to work with the files directly, you could definitely do that. So let me just actually use this one. So they're downloaded as zips. You would need to unzip them. And I will say that 7-zip has seemed to work really well for me, but I'm sure other zipping utilities work fine. Whatever Macs use for zipping, or I guess they don't zip, it's like some other compression method, does not work. So you'll need to have a zipping utility in order to work with the files. But basically, I've just unzipped this package, clicking into it, and then here is the file structure. So you can just unzip and then open the files. You can click into the CSS. Here's the whole custom one CSS. You can open this in an editor. You can make changes directly to this file, and then you would just need to zip this back up in order to successfully upload it and save it. So if you didn't want to go the route of Primo Studio, you just wanted to open the files and deal with them directly, you could do that and then upload it here. The downsides to this obviously is you don't get to see your changes before you actually put them into place in production, or potentially you're loading it to a test view, to try to avoid that. But it's, it doesn't have the visual component of Primo Studio, and if you're not super savvy with CSS or HTML or JavaScript or whatever, it doesn't have that sort of built-in, safeguard of being able to see the changes and that sort of thing. One other caveat I will say with editing things outside of Studio is that if you write your CSS or your HTML or whatever, it's mostly, I think, applicable to CSS and maybe JavaScript, but if you write it, your custom CSS in there and then you try to load it into Primo Studio to do additional work there, Primo Studio writes its CSS in a specific way. And sometimes I've seen if you make changes directly to the package and then you want to open it in Studio, Studio doesn't understand the changes you've made. It writes it differently and it has trouble like reconciling what you've done. So, just think about who's managing your packages, what skills do they have, and also going forward, is it better to manage it one way or another? So just a caveat there if that's the way you want to go, but of course you have more flexibility probably if you edit your files directly, if that's in your skill set. Okay, so we're actually kind of speeding through this. So I'm gonna present the last piece, and then if there are questions, we can answer them, and then if not, we can all leave early. But the last piece is the Primo Explore dev environment. And again, I can't demo this for you, unfortunately, but I can give you resources to, if you wanted to get started with it. And the first place you'd want to go is the GitHub. That's actually going to show, again, just like the other integrations, it's going to show the purpose of it. It's going to show you the installation instructions and everything like that. So you can go there to learn more about it, obviously, if you're interested in doing this. And basically what the Primo dev environment is. So this is also linked on that slide. This is a presentation by the Orbis Cascade Alliance, I think during an eLuna in 2018. So this is actually specifically talking, I think, mostly about classic Primo. So you can work on your classic UI with the Primo Explore dev environment also, but you can also use it for Primo V. And what it does is it basically installs a version of Primo that runs on your computer that references your data. And I think this references Primo back office, but that's not applicable for Primo V, but it lets you develop and test customizations without having to upload the customization package. So it's trying to bridge the gap between editing your files directly and not having a way to see what they look like until you put it into place. It's giving you that test environment where you can test things that you've done outside of Studio, directly editing the files, and then you can see what they look like. But it does take some time, you'll have to read through. There's installation instructions, and then, you can follow that. And I will just say, I do know that there are some specific things that you need to mark as you go through the installation that are specific to Primo V. So make sure that you read through the GitHub and it will tell you if you have Primo V, follow this path or make sure you click this box or whatever. So if you're interested in that, there's more information in here. And I would say if you are interested in doing something more heavyweight than, just making small cosmetic changes, this might be the thing for you. And then you can, of course, see those changes before you have to put them into place. So it can be a really powerful tool. And if anybody in the session is using it and wants to give us some advice, please, feel free. And then we have the Knowledge Center resources giving you the best practices. If you want to take a look at the CSS that is in the documentation that you might want to put in there to change, change some elements in Primo Studio, you can do that. Take a look at that. And then, of course, broken record, but if you want to engage premium services, if you want someone to help you one-on-one, we do that. And that's it for me. So it's actually quite early. It's 10:42. I don't know if there are other questions. I can go back for any demo or anything like that. Let me stop sharing for a second to just read through the chat. It looks like Milan has been answering most of the questions in the chat. Let's see if anything new has come through. I do have a link to, let me post the link to where you can find the slides and the recording. And Milan, I don't know if there's any questions that I can address in demo or something like that before we sign off.
I'm reviewing all the questions right now, but I don't see anything. I believe you had showed, or you mentioned documentation about that shows which parts of the page are affected by which individual theme colors. Was that the best practices documentation?
I think that's actually a different one. Let me look. Yeah. So I'm going to post it into the chat. This is the, whoops. The list, the theme. So you can find all the different elements that the Primo Studio, the colors change. There's a question, where can I find a list of all the different views that I can change? Let me share. So if you're looking at the views that you are able to change, you'll be going into the discovery area, and you can get to this in config and outside. Going into display configuration, configure views, and then the first page here is all of the views that your institution has created, and then you can go into any one of them and edit them. And you can always create more views. If you wanted to create one specifically for testing things, you can definitely do that. And once you create any additional views, you can always use this go to view, and that will open the specific URL that defines that view. And again, it can be hidden from your, from your users. They don't necessarily need to be able to see your testing views, so you can use them that way. Let's see what other questions. There's a question, I've made considerable changes to the CSS in the files, not in Studio, then it wouldn't be a good idea to use Studio at all. I might try just trying to load your package into Studio. If it loads it, then continue on with it. I think that's fine. But I've just seen before anecdotally issues where folks had made changes specifically to the CSS, and Primo Studio didn't want to load them just because it didn't recognize those changes, just because Studio seems to write it in a very specific way. There's a question, I want to add a piece of JavaScript code to where I can get the help box. Should I add the div tag on the HTML tag and then add the script on the custom.js file? That is beyond my troubleshooting skills, but we might be able to help you. We'll take the question from the chat and see if there's anything that we can respond to later. A question, what does override do in the list of views? So if you were creating a view and then you wanted to basically take everything from one view and to paste it into another, override all the changes in the view that you're clicking override in with another, you could do that. So let me just show what she's talking about. So there's override. So if I clicked on override here, I'm overriding all of the changes in this view that I'm working with another, and then you can choose the other one that you're overriding with. So if that's something that you're working with when you're making changes, you can do that. Let's see. Add-ons in Primo Studio, are you able to edit them if you want to add them, or do you have to remove them if you want to make edits after you've enabled them? I think the add-on functionality, although useful, is not as flexible as maybe adding it like directly to your files outside of Studio. As far as I know, in terms of if you wanted to make changes, you don't really have that capacity. You're adding it on, you're adding the variables, and then it adds it for you. And I don't think there's any way to really edit that. I mean, you do have the option to edit your CSS, your JavaScript files, your HTML files in the editor there, but you would have to then sort of figure out what you needed to change and then go back and make those changes. Oh, so the question about the JavaScript might have been answered by the question asker. So there's a question, migrating from Primo in a consortia which has done customization. Will you work with the consortia to reconcile customizations to be able to use the studio? That might be a question for your project manager, your implementation team. Question, can you bold the availability statement in Primo V using Primo Studio? I don't know. Maybe it might be possible to do that with CSS. I've never seen it done before. I do know that some of the add-ons touch the way the availability statement appears, so probably yes, you could. And that's all the new questions that came in. If there's nothing else, then we can sign off for today, and then next week we'll be talking about further customization for the display. All right, so thanks everybody, and I'll be grabbing the chat again and we'll post it in a PDF file. Yeah, and I hope everybody has a lovely day. All right, bye, thank you.